So today I've created a look inspired by the makeup Mila Kunis wore in the film Jupiter Ascending. I recreated the look with a bright orange pink haze around the eyes and a subtle two-tone lip. To begin to prep the skin, I'm using a water-based primer just around the centre of my face. So for the base I'm mixing two foundations, mainly just because one of them is just a little bit too light for me, and I'm actually trialling out a new foundation today. This is the Zelens Youth Glow, and I love it so far, mainly because it's perfect for my skin since my skin is dry. It's oil free, it's kind of a light to medium coverage, and it just gives me even more of a glow than the YSL does. So if you want me to do an in-depth review on that, definitely let me know in the description or the comments. So to correct the purple undertones under my eye, I'm using a pale pink concealer just on the inner corners of my eye. If you're a little bit darker than me, I recommend a peach. If you're a medium skin tone, I recommend almost a pinky peach, a little bit more red toned. And if you're darker, I recommend more of an orangey red. I do recommend the Studio and Correct Duo by MAC, but I will say that the product does move around a lot due to its very kind of thin consistency, so I do recommend when applying it to kind of almost dab the area rather than move it around too much. So to disguise any kind of light pink that may be coming through the eye due to correcting it, I'm just going over the top with some concealer, and I'm actually a big fan of this concealer. Do let me know what you think of it and if you have any more suggestions for me. Da da da! Introducing the powder of the gods. Yeah, I talk about this way too much, but I'm just using this to set around the centre of my face, under my eyes, on my forehead, any areas that you don't want too much of a shine, because we are using a very illuminating foundation here. And we also just want to set that so we can use powder over the top. I'm also going in with a smaller brush just around the eyes to get into those crevices. Now, because the eyes and the lips and pretty much the whole face has colour going on, I want to keep the face very sculpted. I don't want to add much colour, so of course I'm going to chisel away my cheekbones, and I'm just going in to blend that out softly with some leftover powder that I have on. I absolutely love this brush for contour. It's actually one of my favourite ones I've ever tried, so give it a go if you haven't. Then just bringing some of that contour powder lightly onto the forehead and then connecting it to the cheekbones. So for my brows, I'm doing my usual brow routine, which includes filling the outer portion of the brow in with the Dip Brow Pomade in the direction of hair growth. I'm just trying to thicken up the outer portion of the brow and make it look a little bit more straight. Then I just go in and blend everything with a brow brush or a spoolie. So for eye primer, I'm using my trusty Hyaluronic eye primer. If you're more mature than me, you'd probably love this because it has an air whip texture to it and it's very thin. It doesn't give as much coverage as a usual primer, but it's great for mature lids and hooded eyes. Now, when it comes to using red or pink eyeshadow, I really do think the trick is to keep the inner waterline very clean so it doesn't look like you have an eye infection basically. So I'm using a white eye pencil. You could even use a nude colour. This is going to keep everything clean and fresh and avoid you looking like a lab rat or mouse. So to fake the appearance of thicker looking lashes, I'm just going to be tightlining my upper waterline with a waterproof gel. So to begin with colour, I'm going to be using this candy pink, almost iridescent eyeshadow just in the inner corner of my eye. And I think that when you're doing kind of very brightly coloured looks, it really does help to play with different tones of that and using more subtle tones on the inner corners of the eye, or maybe even a pop of colour underneath the eye. Then I'm just going over the top of that with a little bit more of a highlight shade. So I'm going to be using this almost kind of muted pink on the lid, and I feel when you do a very bold eye, I always like to start out with the main colour on the lid, and then if you want to make it more brighter, you can always go over the top with a pigment or something that's really going to make it stand out. But the basics of this is just to get the lid covered and then to blend out any kind of hard shapes around the eye and then begin from there. Now, since there's twice as many blush palettes or shades on the market than there is pink eyeshadows, I recommend having a look at your blush collection to see if you find something that you want to use for this. And I picked a matte shade for this, which worked out beautifully. It had a slight kind of pop of orange in it as well that I felt worked really nicely with the eyeshadow. So I'm just blending that shape and then I'm blurring out any harsh lines and really getting a shape. I want more shadow in the front of the eye than I do the back. Applying more shadow in the front portion of the eye is going to give you a little bit more of an editorial look. So for the lower lash line, I'm going to be using the same colour that we used on the lid, and I'm just applying that to the outer corner all the way to the inner corner. And I love these smudger brushes for placing the colour. You can get a very neatly packed shadow placement with these sorts of brushes. Then I like to use a bigger version of that brush to blend it out so the haze is brought quite far down to the eye. So now for the part that we get to play around with colours. I'm going to be using Pigment by MAC, and I'm just pressing that onto the lid. Like I said earlier, you can really experiment with different shades. Start out with a muted shade, build it up, get the blend that you like, and then go over with that bam in your face pop of colour. That is how I do all my bright eyed looks. Also remember to press the pigment in rather than move it around, because we have that beautiful base on and we do not want to ruin it. So I'm curling my lashes, of course, because they are as straight as a camel's eyelashes. So I saw another YouTuber, aka Karima, use this in her video, and I was like, I have to get this. And I got it, and I have to say it's one of the best mascaras I've tried in a long time. It really, because of the brush is so small, it really grabs a hold of your lashes and just accelerates them into the sky, and I love it. So if you padded your skin previous to using any pigment, you should be able just to brush off any loose pigments. It's the most satisfying thing ever. So I don't normally use these OCC lip tires, mainly because they are BITCH to apply and they move like crazy. If you don't smoke, if you don't have lip lines, trust me, this will make you have lip lines. But because I was using this for the sake of the video, I just wanted to use it. Because it gives you a really intense pigment and you can mix them as well, so that's what I find really useful with them. So I use this kind of deep fuchsia berry colour all over the lips, and like I said, you have to go over with lip liner with this product because it really does kind of break down and go right into your skin and bleed. So I've used a slightly darker lip liner to disguise any bleeding. So I'm also just perfecting the shape of my lip, making sure that everything is symmetrical. And if you have thin lips like me, it really does pay to slightly overdraw them and make the bottom lip a bit fuller, or just make them a little bit more even, because when you wear dark lipstick, your lips tend to look smaller anyway. So to create a two-tone lip, I just mixed a deeper red with the pink that I used all over the lip and just applied that to the bottom of the lip. I think this is a very subtle way of enhancing a coloured look and making it a little bit more editorial and interesting. So because the lip tiles have the tendency to move around a lot, I do recommend blotting them a couple of times and maybe even applying multiple layers of product. So that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this. It's something that I wouldn't usually do on my channel because I do kind of a lot of wearable looks, but I really enjoyed creating this colour combination and playing around with different tones of kind of pinky orange shades. And it was a lot of fun to make, so I hope it was a lot of fun to watch as well. And I will see you very soon. Bye!